began to experience hallucinations of the past and the present, even the future. And even the future. Man thinks of evil that will come and guards against it. As I lay in darkness, this body is a combination aggregates, elements, and sense media, which are comparable to murderers, poisonous snakes, and an empty town, respectively. Which are comparable to murderers, poisonous snakes, and an empty town, respectively. Yeah.
Tell me when. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Are we live? Are we going?
We're in tune.
I think we're in tune to each other on another Sulphurbath production, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should properly introduce it. So, since you haven't had the chance yet, Blaine, would you like to
Am I
start up the
Yes,
show?
we discussed this before. We think you should do it, yeah.
Okay, when you say we discussed this, I was not in the room. So
neither of us talked about it.
We have it
We both
archived.
discussed
Actually, episode 3, I believe
Okay.
it was.
We both
when
thought
said
about
that
it
Blaine should do the
independently.
intro.
yeah, it was Revenge of the Sith, I believe.
Oh yeah, you weren't here. Sorry. You didn't
Yeah,
get
I
to
wasn't
vote.
here. I was elected. It was one of those volunteer things where
Quorum, no.
I didn't step forward, everyone else stepped back one.
We had 2/3, dude.
Yep,
But,
you are a little bit forward,
all right.
yeah, but please introduce
Okay.
us, yeah.
Okay, so this is inside the Sulphurbath.
That works for now,
featuring,
yeah.
Featuring a panel of folks that is a revolving panel. Like we said, I'm not here always, but when my schedule permits, I'm happy to be here.
And we're
and
happy to
contribute. My name is Blaine Kneece. This immediately to my right.
have you. You were left.
Wait, your left is
Their left, hopefully.
okay. That's Mike, and this is Greg.
Yeah, cool.
Mike
Sometimes I
Wilson.
get flustered by directions.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah.
the best way to do it.
Yeah, so we're here tonight again for the fifth episode number 5.
Yeah, it's cool to be at episode 5 already, right? We've been doing it every week now.
It's pretty surreal, actually.
Yeah.
I can't believe that we're actually doing this
Yeah.
right now.
I have a
I
feeling
couldn't
we're gonna
believe
get
it
it
from
right.
episode 1. What was that?
This is the 5th one, but I think we're going to get it right.
Oh yeah, I think we're at
We're
least
gonna be pretty
we're at least
darn
gonna
close
have
to
an
right
idea
tonight.
of what
Yeah.
right looks like.
Yeah.
We'll know
It's a sliding scale.
more.
Yeah, exactly. It's 10 right shows in a row, and you're an internet celebrity.
Yeah,
Bam.
You're left though.
Yes, the audience is left.
Yes, absolutely.
They're left. So what are we doing tonight? You guys want to talk about what's on the list for tonight's show?
Yeah, it's, am I elected to do this as well?
I know you started talking first, so I figured you
God,
just kind of
I backed right
volunteered
into
for it.
didn't I? Okay.
You can start it off. You don't have to do
Well,
whole
the
thing.
guests you're gonna have to help me out with the names on. But we started off with a piece.
Yeah, we did start off
Yeah.
with a little short film,
Then you want to describe that or
a Sulphurbath production.
or what we saw?
Well, yeah, I would like to describe that. Yeah, that was a short film I made with Trevor Hamilton and Fumio Tashiro. Fumio did the music on that, which I think is really amazing because it adds this really kind of creepy, strange element to what's going on. And Trevor did kind of an improvised acting piece where we kind of, at the last minute, threw together a little script and just filmed him doing some different things in different ways. And I edited it together last night. I was up to like maybe 3:30 getting that together.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we're going to try to do one of those kind of like avant-garde, basically a Sulphurbath production every week. It's one of the
Sometimes a
videos that we
Sulphurbath
collaborate
production.
to make.
Oh yeah.
And we'll put that at the beginning of each show. But that one was with Trevor Hamilton and Fumio.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was really cool. It was just kind of a basic experimentation of trying to get inside a character that's reading lines,
Right.
but really focusing on the camera work and what does certain things like pulling focus or changing how you pan an actor and how does that change how you feel about a character reading lines, completely separated from putting them into some situation where you know where they come from as a character. So it's abstract in that sense that there's basically this character and he's reading lines and it's we were kind of going for spooky and disjointed and
You got that for
Yeah.
sure. But another thing I took from it, maybe you weren't intending to, but it happened. I kind of saw it as the character of the character being the character, sort of like
Cool.
introspective of self while reading these lines. Almost there's no sense to the narrative of it, but there is this strong sense of discomfort.
Cool. Yeah,
So,
that goes with it very well because he did a really good job of splitting up these very specific fragments of a character and then blending them back in together. And then you see like literally 3 different characters he's performing at once. And
Right. And very occasionally you do see him as opposed to the character.
Mhm.
And it
That's interesting
dips
too.
in and
Yeah.
out.
And and I love like trying to do that kind of stuff that's very spontaneous. It's very improvised. And at the end of the day, what's really cool about that for me a lot of times is hearing what other people interpret it as. And so many times other people will say, it reminds me of this, and I see this story in it. I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. That's amazing. And Trevor and I were up to thinking about something far removed from that.
No.
So it turned into a cool piece, and, thanks to Trevor, of course, thanks to Fumio. Fumio's a resident house musician that will play live with us tonight as well. And he always kicks ass on everything he does.
Are there
Right.
plans for
Oh,
more of
nice.
these?
Yeah, basically every week. Yeah, we'll have a different thing, a different collaboration, and I hope every week to change it up and collaborate with like a different person on it. And
You're doing next week.
All right. Okay. I'd be happy to.
yeah, let's do a bit or
Okay.
put something together last
All right.
minute.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
should be just right at 2 minutes and 10 seconds, if not 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Those are the two
deal's
acceptable. Yeah, he's
He's really
I'm a
into 2
212
minutes and
kind of
3.
guy.
Oh, I see,
I'm
yeah.
not going to dumb it down for somebody. It's okay?
Yeah, exactly. 212, the 212. Does that have to do in New York in the area
It's
code?
crap, man.
You're claiming your residence.
Yeah, maybe.
Like the first thing you look at every video you look at is how long is the video?
How long is the video?
I'm not watching it.
Yeah.
5 minutes and 3 seconds.
That
3
doesn't fall
seconds too
into
much,
my-
man.
Yeah.
My
You could have been
set
so
of
complete.
Oh god.
So
212 films.
212.
212 films. I
Yeah.
bet you there's some company out there
Just
right now.
made a
People are going to
contest
Google
for it.
that
Mail
and
me
see
your
them.
films that are
Yeah.
212.
Hordes of people are going to Google that right now.
2:12, or
Yeah.
not just the 212 New York films.
Exactly.
Hmm.
That's what I'm talking
Exactly, both of those
Yeah.
options are available.
about. Yes. The answer is yes to that.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And so, what else? So, have you guys been up to? Anything cool going on in your lives personally and project-wise? Anything?
Yeah, working on some interesting projects. Hopefully to shed light on soon. Looking to shoot some stuff in the upcoming week. It should be interesting. And
Cool.
then, if I could break an exclusive once we get to a cool stopping point, I'm happy to do it.
Oh yeah, man, that might be some stuff worthy of doing, like a lower third, where right in the bottom of the
Yes.
frame, it's like
yeah.
exclusive Blaine Kneece's new project.
There you go. Yeah.
Whole episode.
Yeah. Known for his lower thirds.
This is why you're watching. this
Right.
episode.
Sometimes there's little graphics of an American flag like blowing in it or something.
Yeah, covering your lower third.
Yeah. So these days, a lot of people are broadcasting on media, right? And it's a big thing of like, is it just like we're broadcasting right now? Are you just doing it in your garage, or do you put on the illusion that you have some big high production kind of thing, and you put lower thirds, and you put like the little television screen that is envisioned right here, and so there's this huge range of stuff that you can see people doing high production value stuff, but it's like it's just internet, it's just people in their garages now, right? It's like the new garage band.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
danger when you go to like the video store or you're trying to rent something on Netflix. That box cover art, they all look so professional now.
Right.
You don't know until you're like 2 minutes in and you're like, oh, this is a real cheap movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
They took
man.
one good picture and
I
made
thought
the
this
DVD
was
out of
gonna
it.
be good, and then it's not.
Yeah, I often wonder how they judge the statistics on those things. Do they
Yeah.
judge like how many clicks it gets and starts it? Or do they actually track like, okay, so they watched it for a half hour and then they realized you were a dud and it was over. And
Yeah.
so you lose half your points, but
Yeah.
you got 10, 12 clicks.
They're like, Blaine got 10 minutes in, and then he fast forwarded a lot. Then he paused at that bathing suit scene, and then he fast forwarded a little bit more.
Right?
And that was him watching Piranha 3D.
Yeah. literally. I also like Alien Resurrection, Sigourney Weaver playing basketball. That's
Yeah, that's why I watched
Similar
the first
scene
three, just
for
to
some
get
reason.
to that basketball scene.
yeah. Right. Awesome. So, so we're kind of limiting the shows to around an hour, but we're going to edit them honestly and put them on podcasts in the
Yeah.
future. For now, though, we're live and we can
Do you mean
whatever
we're
we
going
want,
to
right?
honestly edit them, or are we going to edit them with honesty?
I'm saying honestly, I'm cueing everybody in that we are going to edit them.
I gotcha.
Yes.
I just want to make sure. We are not going to be honest about the
Yeah.
editing that we do.
Editing is inherently dishonest, I think.
I know.
Even right now, you're not hearing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're cutting this out of the show.
Yeah, we're actually
Exclusive
right now we're
live.
claiming it's live, and there are people at home. They're like, "Oh, this is happening at the same time." It's not actually. There's like a 10-second delay or something
Yeah.
too. So
People are like,
we
"Edit
can't
live,
actually
guys,
achieve
edit
live unless you're hanging out in the room with us.
Yeah.
And in that case, the show is live, right? Because we have friends hanging out and giving us the random woo. So that's always really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to we're at the Fish Show now. By the time we get to the dozenth show,
Yeah.
I think that we'll probably have a big audience of people sitting in the room.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be nice.
we're
Yeah.
gonna multiply our woos that we get.
Yeah.
It won't
Yeah,
just
yeah.
be the people at home tuning in and wooing on their own,
Yeah.
right? Cool. So in the future, Blaine, please give us an exclusive and
Yeah,
show
I
us
would
what
love
project
to.
you're working on. I
I'd
know
love
it's
to, or even just a video or two that we make.
cool.
Along the,
Yeah, we'll have those definitely along the way
yeah, that'd be nice.
as well. Cool. So we should move along to our political segment, right? Political slash
Well,
culture.
do we want to
slash
go through the introduction of the rest of the show? We kind of got cut off.
Oh, yeah.
We did, yes. I think that's a good
So
idea.
we do have a political segment with.
Tonight we're going to talk to Chris Haddix. Chris is going to join us tonight. He's a friend and an author at The Mantle, www.mantlethought.org. And that's a really good webpage. Our friend Sean Randall is actually the editor-in-chief, and he's joined us on the last show with Chris. And Chris is back to talk to us again tonight. We really enjoy having him. So we're going to have kind of a political cultural discussion with Chris tonight and see kind of what's going on in the world and talk about, something that's current events, it's topical. That's one thing that we always talked about the Sulphurbath, right? It's there's 50% of the conversations that happen here are collaborations of artists, and then the other 50% are our friends that come and talk to us about their research in their labs or, what they're publishing.
Right.
Or political discussions, and so we want to kind of link those two in our talk show and go through both of those. So in reference to that, tonight we also have this great artist, Joel Gold. He's a poet.
Yeah.
Joel is also a friend, and I've seen him perform before, and has totally blown me away from the very first thing that I've seen him do. And so it's really super great honor to have him on the show tonight. He's really great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
So please, everybody at home, stick with us. We're going to have a little political discussion, and then Joel Gold's going to come out and do some poetry for us and have a discussion with us as well. And then we're going to wrap the show like we do every show, right? With a segment that we haven't titled or anything. What do we even? How do we refer to that? What do we call it?
The closing segment, the ender. I don't know. I don't have a name for it.
I was thinking Space Jam, the ultimate ending of a show through improvised musical performance, comedy, and hilarity.
Not
It's really
affiliated
interesting
with
because
the
I was
film
hoping
Space
you
Jam.
exactly very specifically wouldn't say Space Jam.
It's one of those meta things. You're supposed to watch the movie Space Jam while you're watching our show.
Whoa.
It
There's all
lines
these
up.
linking
Totally lines
synchronicities.
up.
Yeah.
We already know. We
Basically,
haven't even
everyone
done it
is-
yet, and it's improvised.
Yeah.
Basically,
and it
everyone
lines
is
up.
on the show just picks up an instrument and starts playing and feels out an improvised piece, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And it's always been a lot
Take
more.
that, The View.
When was the last time that you talked about Space Jam?
When's the last time they picked up a bass?
They're so irrelevant.
I've never seen Barbara Walters.
Yeah, you got that. You pointed
Get
that out to
down
me
on it.
about
Right.
our
Yeah.
first or second show, Blaine. You were like, when was the last time you seen a host like turn around and pick up an instrument and,
Yeah, you've never.
And I think that's cool. Every show that we do ends in that. It's just kind
Yeah.
of like a dissemination of information into our sensual export of interaction
Yeah.
in a tactile
we
world.
we got rid of our art and politics thoughts, and let's just get them out of us. Okay,
Yeah.
now let's just bond.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's
and
interesting you
brilliant.
say
It goes
that
through a natural
because-
process.
Yeah,
I've seen talk show hosts play an instrument on a show, and it's always like a dog standing on its hind legs because they do it once out of the entire series, and you're just like, that's not your spot on the show.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that it's every episode that it's a
Yeah.
feels like the right way to end it.
thing.
Can you guys think of talk show hosts that have? I can't think
Conan
of like
O'Brien.
Howard Stern. Conan plays guitar or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always awkward for me to watch him. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Johnny Carson used to play what, like the psychic card?
No,
Or-
he was an actual magician. That's how he started off.
Huh.
When he
Oh.
was a kid, he in Nebraska he used to do like kids parties. And he was a really great sleight of hand. Great
When he was a
card
kid, he
trick.
did
Oh,
kids
cool.
parties.
Yes, when he was like
All right.
12 years old.
I've seen
he
some
did
young
that.
pictures of him doing that stuff. Yeah.
and then he did like local TV, and then it got out of magic altogether. But it's great. There's some old footage of him like doing card
Yeah.
tricks. Yeah, it's really great.
And that led to an apex career of being sleight of eye or something, right?
Yeah.
And he was the main man of like, hey, Johnny Carson is TV at night, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And-
he
So the gateway is magic. Is that the?
No,
is that
he-
the
I think
goal?
so. There's something magical about a talk show host that every night you can tune into that guy. And he didn't even do much, right? It was in his subtle
Yeah.
reactions and in how he played the
Yeah.
role.
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
very humble and stuff at the same time, but he, just him laughing at other musicians or comedians and such.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he was very subliminally like doing some magic on you, this sleight of eye.
Yeah.
And some sort of like, you can still tune into me. Yeah, you're seeing the exact same thing you saw last week, episode 4 last week. But you're seeing something new at the same time, and isn't that kind of cool,
Yeah, but maybe it's meaningful that he was into magic before he got into that, because he knew
There
how
was
to sort of convince a crowd that it's interesting that I'm showing you what card you picked out of this deck.
Mhm.
There was
Maybe that's the trick to magic, is
Yes.
making that part interesting.
he had a famous debunking of Uri Geller, psychic, and the guy was going to come on the show. He bends spoons with his mind, and he does all these amazing magic tricks. He's a psychic, and he reads minds, does all this stuff. Anyway, he was going to bend spoons, and Johnny Carson was going to have him on as a guest. And then Johnny Carson called the Amazing Randy, who's a magician. He's like, okay, don't let any of his people touch the spoons before he goes on. And he
Right.
did. And then it was like a famous segment where Uri Geller's like, oh, there's some problem. I can't
Really?
do it. Yeah, and it was
How do
kind
you
of
play-
sad in a way.
how do you
'cause you're
play
like,
that
I
off?
want to see the magician do the trick,
Man.
but
Yeah, it's his art form. Let him complete it. Like,
yeah, but
you
he's
know.
kind of bilking people, with that, like the
Yeah.
whole psychic medium thing. Like people take advantage of your emotional state. It's just not right.
Mhm.
It's interesting though. Where's the line with that? Like,
I don't know.
in a sense,
I think the line is with Milli Vanilli's tape machine going bad. When I was
Maybe.
like, oh, you ruined the trick.
but
damn
didn't
it."
they entertain
That's-
people in the meantime?
No, I think they just fled
I
the
mean, I
stage in
wasn't,
fear of
but-
their social lives. Yeah.
I don't know
I
if
would
they
have tried.
entertained
If you were
millions,
Milli
but they
Vanilli-
entertained one.
If you're in that position, you're Milli Vanilli. Let's say you're on the stage. You've committed to lip syncing your show in
Yeah.
public in front of a crowd,
Put a mop on your head.
and suddenly it's outrageous. They've seen that you're doing a fake and a trick.
Yeah.
What do?
Keep going.
Jam.
You keep jamming.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That could happen to us tonight.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah, once the
tape
once the
starts
tape
skipping.
stops working.
and suddenly, what do? We just keep going with it. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, so do you guys ever see Three's Company?
Yeah.
Because Jack was such a tripper, man. It's craziness. Okay, yeah. And what else do we have?
Well, that's pretty much the lineup.
Yeah, that is the
Yeah.
lineup.
We'll end at the end.
We'll end at the end.
Yeah,
Fumio,
at the
Fumio's
end.
going to come out and lead us into that
Right
improvised
now, I
jam
think
we're
we
going to
just
do.
finished the beginning.
We just finished. I think we just finished the
We're
beginning.
coming to the
yeah.
end of the beginning.
Makes sense.
I would say.
That's the thing. I remember traveling in
certainly
Europe
hope
and
so.
hanging out with a lot of, mystic style. We're traveling, like hanging out with. Long story short, hanging out with a lot of mystics in Europe. That's the long story short. And somebody was talking about the end of the world, and there's all this thing about the end of the world, right? And it's so ubiquitous in pop culture today, right? So many films and rap albums and series and everything is about like apocalyptica and like the end of the world and all this stuff. But I remember sitting around this big group of people at a restaurant in Austria, in Graz, Austria, and somehow we were just talking about the end of the world. And there was this one guy, this French guy that was like a silk screener, I think, in Paris. And he was there in Austria and meeting up at this thing that was, it was called the Kala Chakra. It was this big event for Tibetan Buddhists. And, I went there and attended it and volunteered and actually met the Dalai Lama on this one trip, like going there and being lucky enough to volunteer and meeting all these great people that were also volunteers. But I remember this one subtle comment as we were all half drunk was, everybody's talking about the end of the world, but they refuse to talk about the world that will begin right after. And it was always this is the completion of the circle, and of course he's right. And like, what's the end of the world? Outside of a huge asteroid,
Yeah.
right? We're gonna DNA is pretty strong, and humans are pretty smart, and we're gonna do some great things now that we have better technology, and we're not just like stones and rocks and totally addicted to drugs or power or oppression anymore.
Well,
we're like some smart
When it
peeps
all
now,
goes
right?
down, I want to be drinking with the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you he would drink with you, and he would have a good time. Yeah,
I hope so.
I think so.
Yeah. Why not?
He's really into jokes that he can understand.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so if you could tell him a joke that is not just like where he's
English as
asking
a
his
second
advisor,
language,
like,
I
"Hey,
kill
what do you
with
say?"
that demographic.
And you would make a killing too. A lot of that demographic is plugged in these days, man. You should go for it.
Dalai Lama demographic. Is that what
Yeah.
we're talking about?
I
right
think
now?
so. Yeah,
Okay.
the Himalaya.
That is a very large circle to be breaking
I think we're
into.
talking about local geographic Himalaya
Yeah.
internet plugged in audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the comedians that go to the Catskills to perform.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they
our
go to the Himalayas.
Yeah, and also, politically, we'd be idiots to not say, of course, what is it, Dharmasala or wherever the Dalai Lama actually does live in India now, because he's, cast from his own land, as well as many Tibetan people, which will probably, hopefully, be a whole other episode of our show. And that brings up a good point. It's like what we like doing here, right? We discuss the arts, we discuss music. We are ourselves musicians and hang out with a lot of other musicians and artists, and that's what we're into, and that's what we love, is new original stuff that's kind of, regardless of budget or how you're selling it or whatever mainstream level it has, we like hanging out with people that want to be creative and want to collaborate. And at the same time, we realize that means not just in the arts and music, but also in thought and knowledge. And maybe through our show somehow we can come up with some way that's like, hey, we're collaborating and our medium is knowledge here. And so we want to do that in a very honest way, bringing on authoritative guests that will talk to us about politics and stuff. Yeah. And so that's going to lead us into our next segment, right? So, yeah. Mixing those two things. We want to do that. We want to talk about music and art and politics and try to basically kind of create a new kind of discussion, a new kind of dialogue that can be witnessed online, obviously live. And in fact, people can chat. And anybody that is watching us now, maybe at home, you can make your comments and stuff, and other people will see your comments.
To put it my own way, I feel like we deal with a lot of personal issues here. A lot of things that are very personal and very important to the people who are talking about them. And in many cases to everyone else who's on the show. But I feel there's a very human element to a lot of the things that we're seeing happen on this show.
Yeah, and I think that's great.
That's great. If nothing else, if no one were even to see this show, I'm glad that I'm here to see that stuff
exactly.
happen.
And just making it concrete and being, I think we will have an inherent amount of integrity just because we are honest, and we are honestly saying, like, this is what we want, what we're doing, this is what we know, this is what we want to learn, and this is what we're into, and kind of sharing that. And also those personal stories like what you're talking about. I think there's some sort of niche that's not recognized yet. That's not exactly reality TV. And it's not exactly like sitting on YouTube just yourself in front of your computer.
With your opinions that you've scripted.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But more of like a town, almost like a town hall. I kind of view this as a town hall, but everybody in that town is like really funny, smart people that I like. Right? So that's the editing process that happens. Maybe we'll have a town hall in a...
Next week, we're all going to wear togas and have like a Roman Senate. I feel like that's what it is.
Oh, yeah. Can I wear my toga under my other clothes, though? Because I feel kind of weird about...
That would be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think you should...
Bad experience at a toga party in college, man. I can't go there. Like wearing a toga, drinking way too much beer for you that you should...
Yeah.
That's not a good combination of things.
I'm going to remember this for another show. You're going to have to tell us the rest of that story, Mike.
But I'll tell it now. You end up passed out bare bum in the backyard with like a sheet covering your head for some reason. And you thought, oh, this sounded like such a good idea when the guys mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
Like, let's pretend we're ancient Greeks and get fucked instead of studying for our finals.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow that goes wrong. Go figure.
I don't know.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to bring out... That's right. Like, how do we go transfer from that?
I think you're on the right track. Keep going.
Yeah, right. So besides that segue, we'd like to bring out Chris now. Chris, writer for The Mantle and a good friend. He's going to come out and talk to us right now. Chris, how you doing, man? Cool. Woo, Chris.
That's mantlethought.org.
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 Yeah, cool. What's up, man? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. How do these headphones look?
They look really good, yeah. And the super benefit of having these now, this is our first episode with headphones, so we should tell everybody about that.
Oh,
so before, there would be parts where people like, so the other day, what's really important is the thing that I was,
Here's mostly at the most poignant parts. Like when you're really making a point and you're just kind of leaning over your mic.
Yeah, right.
The most important
thing. You just get away from it.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think that's ever happened.
How do you think these headphones are going to look with togas, though? I was hoping the toga thing would be today, though.
Yeah. That's an interesting icon. I like that as an icon, as an image, like toga, headphones.
Yeah.
Are we missing?
That's a good image.
Sandals or maybe like a giant ship or something? We missing something from that, but...
Well, I'm happy to be back on the Sulphurbath.
Cool, cool, man.
I'm
glad you're joining us
I make
again.
the final cut.
Right. No, I'm glad you're joining us again. Our first conversation I thought was really cool when you and Sean joined us and we talked about Egypt.
So last week we talked about Egypt, and today we're going to talk about Greece.
Yeah.
And apparently I have a lot of opinions on places I've never been.
Right. Who doesn't?
Well, yeah.
But I take you as quite an authority, actually, because I know you do your research, and I know through your networks and just you and different people that have been here talking to me, you've always enlightened me and given me not only the story of what's going on, but you've always given me that backup of like, oh, go check out this article or whatever. And so there's always this backup of where that information comes of and citing sources and stuff. So, but you're writing now for the Mantle,
Right.
And you just had an article published today, right?
Just published an article today. It's a story about Kostas Sakis, who's an anarchist in Greece, and he had been on hunger strike since June 4th. And yesterday, prison doctors determined that he was near the end of his life. And he had been on hunger strike for over a month, and he was coming up at the end. And the reason he was hunger striking, I'll tell you, is that he had been held for 31 months without trial in prison in Greece. And there's lots of legal technicalities that we won't spend a whole lot of time getting into, but much of the detention was illegal. It was contrary to Greek law and contrary to European law. And in an effort to get the courts to recognize his situation and get the wider world to recognize his situation, Sakis started a hunger strike on June 4th. And yesterday, I was not sure if I was going to write a story about how he had tragically died and what the ramifications of that were going to be, or what actually thankfully ended up happening was that he was granted a 30,000 euro bail, and so he was thankfully released from prison for the time being, and he'll be able to have a sandwich. And
well, so the 30,000 bail, that's a huge amount, right? So
it's a huge amount.
Is that in accord with what the courts had stated as law? Or was that also kind of in violation of his rights? Or
well, the situation is that he was arrested in April 2010, and he was arrested leaving a warehouse in an Athens warehouse district that was used to store firearms, bombs, this kind of stuff for anarchist violence. And he's been very upfront about this from the beginning. He never denied that he was associated with this place. That he never denied his political leanings. In fact, he's always been very upfront about this. But he was arrested in 2010, and he was remanded to a prison, awaiting trial ostensibly. And in it was February 2011, right? So nearly a year after he's been initially arrested, he was then charged again with a new crime, and he was charged with being a member of the Conspiracy of Fire Cells, which is a violent anarchist organization in Greece, and it's illegal to be a member, and so.
And sorry to interrupt you. When you say violent anarchist organization in Greece, you mean violence carried out against the state, or
right?
What are they?
Sure. I mean, they do participate in bombings of bank branches, arson of official cards, but they're also in Greece right now, you have a political situation where there's violence on both sides of the spectrum. So on the far left, there's violence that's being exacerbated by the debt crisis, and on the far right, there's violence that's being created ultimately because of the debt crisis. So the Golden Dawn, the far right neo-Nazi party in Greece, which is getting a lot of people that are buying into its program, because in times of economic deprivation, people tend to latch on to some more radical ideologies. Right. And so political violence isn't a new thing in Greece. It's not isolated to the left. It runs the spectrum, and it actually has something of a history in Greece. Violent political parties. But so back to Sakis. He was, he was then charged again with being a member of this organization, and he was remanded again for an additional amount of time on this new charge. Now, in Greek law, you can only hold a person for 18 months on a single charge without trial, right? And in some extraordinary cases, it could be extended to 30. But in those, what are we talking about? We're talking about terrorists, ostensibly. But he was remanded on the second charge, and as he neared his 18 months on the second charge, right? So it's now nearly, it's been 28 months nearby, right? He was then charged again with being a member of the Conspiracy of Fire Cells and having participated in fire bombings, right?
And what was that charge about? Did they have evidence against him on that?
They didn't have any evidence against them. In fact, the conspiracy of fire cells, for what it's worth, came out and disavowed that he had ever been a member of their organization.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And, he was very upfront about the fact that, sure, he was an anarchist and he participated in political violence, but he wasn't a member of this group.
But yeah, it's like you're pegging me to the wrong thing.
Right.
You're not even
pegging him to the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was ultimately, remanded again, though, for being a member. And that's a violation of Greek law. Greek law says that you cannot, break a single charge up into pieces, so to be able to remand a person longer.
Which the second charge would have been the first part of that, and then they're breaking us off as fire bombings associated with being a member.
Exactly. And interestingly, apparently Greece had something of a history of doing just that. Because in 1996, the European Convention on Human Rights, I believe, mandated or dictated in some way as contingency of Greece further entrance into the Eurozone, that it was going to have to stop this practice. And there's a law that's specially designed to prevent breaking up charges in an effort to hold people in pretrial detention longer than 18 months. Mm-hmm. And so not only was this detention in violation of Greek law, but it was also in violation of European Union conventions. And what really struck me about the whole situation is that in Greece, as I think most people are aware at this point in time, we have a situation of forced austerity where the Greek state is being forced to pay back a tremendous amount of debt, right? Because it was in violation of certain European Union economic conventions, right? And so what you see is that you see the EU enforcing its economic conventions with an iron fist. And you see the consequences in Greece and Italy and Spain and Portugal of rising unemployment, of slash social welfare benefits, hunger, homelessness, this kind of thing. But when it comes to human rights issues in precisely these countries that are at issue, Greece in this particular situation, the European Union is willing to turn a blind eye. To really, as long as they're getting their money, everything's fine. No matter what you have to do to make sure that we continue to get it. And if it means, a little bit of authoritarianism. I'm having a tough time with that word tonight. Yes. If it means that at home, then, so be it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so again, it's business interests versus kind of like what's actually best for the people as citizens. And talking about economy and joblessness versus like weighing in on corporate interests.
Yeah. I mean, it's about, doing what's legal, and then doing what's right.
Right.
And in Greece you have it happening on both sides. You have a immoral situation with the fact of this forced austerity. That's a moral wrong of what's happening to that country and to those people. And then you have this fudging of legalism that happens when society is beginning to fray at the threads. You just don't have the rule of law enforced anymore. So,
and then that's a fairly fundamental problem.
It's a fairly
because if we're not going to take care of the policies that govern what we're told is going to keep everything together, what should then happen?
Well, you see it happening around the world, really. That when law and right come up against economic numbers, right? That the numbers win. That when things are calculable, it's easy to make sure it gets done. But when it's a matter of enforcing right, then there's a lot of gray area.
If I can ask, and it might be kind of a naive question, but the microcosm talking about Kolos, is it Kolos? Sakis, sorry, Kolos, Sakis, right? The microcosm of talking about him and Greece in general, like it might be kind of a naive question, but what do you think is the best outcome right now regarding their presence in the EU and possibly being able to bounce back somehow with or without the help of international funding and the IMF? And
they have a long road ahead of them either way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel as it stands right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question about if the benefits of staying in the Eurozone outweigh the consequences of leaving. And, a lot of that question revolves around agency. I mean, as it stands right now, Greece is in a position of subjugation to the European Union, who, are the paymasters in this situation. They're dependent on European Union bailout money to keep their economy running, such as it is. If they were to leave the euro and return to the drachma, their old currency, there'd be an immediate devaluation that would be, it would be tragic. It would devastate the country. It's an already devastated country, though. But
also equally across the country to some extent.
What's that?
So that the hit would be sort of same for everybody?
No, the hit's never the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The hit always hits the poor.
Yeah,
I mean, the bankers and the people who have their money in Switzerland and wherever the hell else they keep it, right? They're going to be able to play the currency game and get all their money situated. But sure, the people in Greece that have, euros right now, what little money that they have,
right,
they're going to see their wealth wiped away. But at that point in time, you could begin to manage your own monetary policy. And so that's what happened, what we saw in Iceland. Iceland had a banking crisis in 2008, and they were, not yet full members of the European Union, but they were on the road. And when they saw what was going to have to happen in Iceland for them to continue to be part of the European community, they left. And there was an immediate devaluation of the currency, but they're on the road back. And it's not like it is now for Greece, where you have 30 years into the future mandated austerity already in place.
Right.
And it can't be any other way, as long as there's these, European Union economic standards that have to be met, as were they to be members of the European Union. So right now in Greece, you have a parliament that's dominated by, center-right parties, and you have three major parties in Greece right now. You have New Democracy, which is a center-right party, and they hold the majority in parliament, and their leader is the prime minister. You have PASOK, which is a socialist party, and which was in power it was in power in 2008. It was in power up until just last year. And so it bears a lot of responsibility for the situation that the Greek economy is in. And then you have Syriza, this is the coalition of the radical left on the far left. And Syriza was, up until elections last year, a minor party, a blip on the screen. But
things change.
The other way that things change is that you also have Golden Dawn, this radical right-wing neo-Nazi party that has 18 seats in parliament. It's not just, it's not just on the streets. It's not just an idea. I mean, they have legislative power, and they also have the ear of New Democracy, the ruling party. So elections are coming up, and we could see a shift. If Syriza gets a few more seats in the next election, they're going to be able to form a coalition, and they're going to take the reins. And at that point in time, I think, and I expect to see a serious conversation about Greece staying in the zone.
Yeah.
And, it just, you see it across Europe. You see it in Greece, in Italy, Portugal, Spain, and, France and Ireland and all these places that, for a lot of people, a lot of citizens of these countries at least, the value of continuing to be a European Union member it's not paying off. It's being, outweighed by the social costs.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how much do you think this is an example for other nations that will? How much do you think this is an example that other nations will take to heart of the fears and the warnings about the globalism and new economic zoning and stuff like that?
Well, I think it's something that people should take to heart, but each situation is different. So I don't know, for instance, if we want to speculate and say, we have, for instance, Latin American, trading cooperative agreements such as they do in the European Union. Not the same, quite the same thing, but each situation is different. I think what the lesson will be, if Greece leaves the euro, though, you'll see other countries leave almost right away. I mean, once one goes,
right,
they're all going to go, and it certainly remains to be seen how that's going to play out. As far as kind of like global. These kind of global communities that the European Union was supposed to be this kind of new brand of governance. And,
right.
Folks like Kostas Sakis, and other anarchists in Greece and, in other places in Southern Europe, they never bought into that. They always, thought that this was a bad idea, that this was going to work out badly. And so there's, people out there on the streets who are, beginning to already work on the new reality of when this no longer exists. And what I mean by that is, especially in Greece, which is what we're talking about, the anarchists have had a long time presence. And with the cut in social programs that's happened, and with garbage on the streets, and with, soup kitchens opening up, it's the anarchists and a lot of these far left parties that are taking up a lot of the slack over there. They're feeding people, they're cleaning up neighborhoods, they're doing these kind of social welfare things that the state isn't able to do anymore.
Right.
We also see that on the far right, and that's there's a battle there because people are already living without the state. The state's a minimal presence in their lives.
And just an establishment like that in itself could be something of not only an experiment ground to see how do people cope with this, but as an example for other nations to see, like, it's not like it's only this one option, that people do come together. I mean, what I'm hearing is actually kind of a little bit hopeful, right? I mean, you still have the split and the argument on both sides, but in general, people will come together and keep the fabric of society together, even though they're still arguing, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's not. I don't think that's a lesson for nations. I think that's a lesson for people.
Right.
It's a lesson. It's a lesson for organizers, and it's a lesson for groups that are working within their communities to take over some of these.
It's an individual lesson, that you have the power to do something to somebody near you, but globally that's a different idea.
It should be a warning that these services that we depend on are can disappear overnight.
Yeah,
quite frankly,
and things will change if that happens, and we might not know what the impact is on our daily life, and we'll probably if that were to happen to us, I'm sure we'd have a much better insight on it, obviously, but we probably have a much harder time.
One thing I always wonder is how come there's not more of like a backup plan or something placed by government to us here in the United States of like admitting like what if this does fails, like we don't know what to do. Same thing makes me wonder like how come the major world leaders don't actually stand up and preach peace. It's all like policy. It's like why don't they inform us of more practicalities and get pragmatic? Or are we just that? Are we just that much?
Quite frankly, I think that if you empowered the citizens to do too much of it themselves, then the state becomes relatively becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
A lot of people's lives, and although I think that's fantastic, I think that the bureaucrats probably don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of salaries that depend on this shit.
But even the avenues of how to do that, it's I think really enabling just to talk about certain specific things like that people can do, and when it not even an example of like if the state fails,
right.
But the practicalities that in the people's hands, you can do a lot for your own community that's right there, without wondering how is some higher authority going to take care of that. And furthermore, that psychological ideal of like always falling back on the idea, what's the authority, what's the teacher, what's the parent in the room think about it, instead of us thinking that we're adult citizens that can work together.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is taking direct action in your community to make things happen, without needing somebody to guide you along the way. But what happens a lot of times is that anytime you go out there to, for instance, say there's an empty lot in your neighborhood, right? That's just decrepit, and it's a magnet for crime and this kind of thing. Crack. Prostitutes hang out there.
Absolutely.
But say you're sick and tired of it, and so you go over there and you clean out the filth, and you plow the land, and you plant some fucking
flowers
or
make a jungle gym or something.
Yeah. But you can't do that, of course, because the minute that you begin acting on this land, you're going to find yourself caught up in a web of property rights and a web of regulations, and you're going to have to pay for permits.
Right.
And so the idea of being able to do things ourselves is fantastic, but the reality of it is that we live, and we hear it over and over again, we live in a nanny state, that there's ways of capturing people as they act, to bring them into the fold. And a lot of times it kills action because nobody likes dealing with bureaucrats to begin with.
Yeah,
nobody likes filling out forms, and nobody likes
I
the
think
kind
paperwork
of red
was
tape.
Created to keep things from happening.
Exactly.
Right.
It's exactly what it was. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
So you need to fill out this form. No, thank you.
Keeping things from happening is really the function of government, because nothing's more frightening than something happening.
Yeah.
I mean, America is a testament to nothing really happening.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I've been to the suburbs, so nothing happens there. Nothing.
Well, stability is blasé, right? I mean, that's I love the suburbs. Worst place to go.
No.
I hate the suburbs
Very dynamic.
so much. Best place to go, man.
Yeah.
When you really need somewhere to go.
Right.
You'll catch me on different days saying both of those statements and totally believing them.
Yeah.
But you also bring up the wider conversation. Hopefully, we can have on another day. Is pragmatism and what's going on in the world, the population and toxins in the rivers and all this, and at the same time we have 300 something million Americans like growing lawns and like watering like little blades of grass, and it's like grow some fucking food and like count. Scientifically even it seems like there's a better way that we can do things.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of like always, like you're saying, that mess, that spider web you get caught in of all the litany and all the paperwork and everything.
Well, I think back to Greece, what we've seen in Athens is, able-bodied young people or able-bodied anybody who's able to leave the city have left.
Yeah.
They've bought land in the countryside. They've gone out there. They've begun growing their own food. They've begun, using less electricity, doing these kind of things because, it's been forced upon them. I mean, Athens is not, you ever see pictures of Athens in the summertime? I mean, it is a
yeah, I've been there in the summertime.
hot,
It's
concrete, dusty,
Stony.
Yeah, it's not. Nowadays it's dangerous.
Is that also covered with garbage and crime?
because it's covered exactly, exactly. And so you see people leaving, and you see people, not going to the suburbs, but going out, learning how to live, differently, and learning how to live like their grandparents did, that kind of thing. But developing the skills that are necessary. I mean, quite frankly, I'm sure we've all done the thought experiment where, if it all fails tomorrow, which one of us knows how to grow the corn?
Yeah.
Not me.
I've mapped out the route I'm going to walk out of New York City
With the
when
zombie
everything
apocalypse?
burns down. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just gonna start eating the
I know where I'm
bugs.
headed.
I'm the one with the gun.
There you go. Call Blaine. He's got a gun. We can
You're the
eat
one
him.
that wins in the end.
I'll figure out which one can grow corn. And you're covered.
pretty quickly too. By the way, may I add. But within 7 or 8 feet under the earth, bam, right there we have everything we need to eat.
Yeah.
Right here in Brooklyn, you get these really nice, delicious long earthworms, and it's not necessarily polluted. It's good.
Well, there's countless cans of cat food out there for
Right.
the really hard times.
Right.
Yeah. We don't want to joke about that, though.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So close after that segment, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and of course, right here in America, not to mention globally, and the destitution in the world, we have people, our neighbors right here in Brooklyn, that are eating cat food right now.
Exactly.
I read
And
an
we're
article
not-
recently that said something about inside Brooklyn, something like 60 something, and this is wrong, but 60 something % of the population lives below the poverty line, which is considered, excuse me, $30,000 per year for a family of 4.
Right.
So that's 30 grand, family of 4. Most of Brooklyn is living on that.
Right.
That's something that we don't all think about.
And that's in comparison to what's happening in other countries like Greece and across the ocean. Not that bad.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's
We're
another
dealing
thing you
with
start
something
seeing.
that is terrible,
Mhm.
and it's still good
Yeah.
compared to what's happening in other places.
Funny thing though, you see there's an ideology behind this austerity that is not just a matter of getting paid back from Greece, right? It's not, this austerity ideology has, is rooted here in the States as well. I mean, there was just a bill passed, this last week that slashed food aid to United States citizens, and I hope that you guys have never had to apply for food stamps, but
I know people who have had to though.
once you get into that process, though, you realize that to get food aid, you have to be really destitute. And
Yes.
it's
and there are a
unfortunate
lot
that,
of forms you need to fill out,
of
and there's
forms.
a lot of steps that you must follow.
and you
And
have to
it's
show
very
your face.
dehumanizing.
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
very much taken away from your own facilities as someone who can do something, and you're
Right.
basically treated like a subclass person.
Well,
Yeah,
and
and-
it's you're treated as a subclass in our political conversation as well. I mean, we have a whole party that's dedicated to slashing aid to the welfare, slashing social welfare.
Cut them loose.
Cut them loose.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the same groups of people that sit and badger the system because they've seen somebody using food stamps to order a fancy Domino's pizza, right?
Right.
And they should be out there eating like the leftover
welfare,
sausages
the welfare
or something.
queen with the Cadillac.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I think that was a Reagan thing.
It's like, get a grip. I challenge everybody that might be tuning into us to go actually look up online and see what the welfare statistics are and see how much of your money goes toward supporting of the war versus how much welfare is out there and how much of each cent of your tax dollar does go in to help somebody in some poor family below the poverty line get food. It's not much.
Since we are talking about, and this is a little bit of a left turn, but the jury, the Trayvon Martin jury, went out today, and so maybe since we're talking about current events, we should at least take note that this is going to be it's going to be a heavy verdict one way or another, and there's going to be a lot of emotions on both sides. So just keep an eye out for that.
Can you give us the quick backstory of that, just for anybody that might be listening that's not clued into what's happening here?
Well, I'll try to keep it even. There was an unfortunate incident in Florida last year where an armed neighborhood security guy, although he wasn't actually on duty at that point in time,
not an official agent of the state,
not in any official capacity. He was armed.
He was an off-duty
legally.
Neighborhood watchman.
He was an off-duty neighborhood watchman who was, I think the story was that he was driving through this neighborhood on his way to shoot target practice. And that's why he had his pistol. And he sees Trayvon Martin, who's a 17-year-old black kid, walking through the neighborhood. He has his hoodie on. He's got his hood up. It's raining outside. He's got a packet of Skittles and a Pepsi or something like this. And he had popped out because it was halftime of the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game. So we know that he's walking down the street with the Skittles in one hand, and he's talking on the phone with his friend. And he notices, George Zimmerman, the off-duty neighborhood watch guy, sees Trayvon Martin and decides that he's, suspicious, and there had been some robberies in the neighborhood, and decides that he's going to take it upon himself to follow him and eventually confront him. And the confrontation between Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman ended with Trayvon Martin shot once through the heart, dead. And, initially George Zimmerman wasn't arrested. Florida's got what they call stand your ground laws, which say that, if you believe that your life is in some reasonable danger, you have the right to shoot to kill. And George Zimmerman's story all along was that he indeed, confronted Trayvon Martin, and we have the 911 calls that he made to dispatch saying that, he was following this kid and this kind of thing. But George Zimmerman's story is that when he confronted Trayvon turned on him and, beat the shit out of him. Trayvon is a 17-year-old kid. He was, 150, 160 pounds. George Zimmerman is 33 years old, I think. And he was armed. And he was the actor in this play. He was the one that instigated the confrontation in the first place. And he was ostensibly trained in jiu-jitsu. And so how Trayvon Martin got George Zimmerman to the ground and was, as George Zimmerman describes it, pounding his head into the pavement, we'll never know. I think we all know that George Zimmerman is just a big pussy. But I shouldn't say that, I guess.
That's for the jury to decide.
We all may believe
I think
that.
whether he's guilty of this crime or not,
That's not one of the charges.
He got his ass handed to him by a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, that is an important thing to point out. If that's what he wants to say,
that's his
an
story.
Important
That's
point
his story
to point out.
It's also the perfect dodge for the same crime that's been committed 10,000 times here in America since we were founded.
Right.
And something else that needs to be noted. I mean, you can get on YouTube, you can get online and find the stories that, we see certain percentage of stories of that kind of police brutality, but the police brutality that the black community suffers is intense. And here in New York, the things that I've seen, the stories since I've lived here, have been completely crazy. And it's another thing that people don't realize that happens so much as it does. And now that we're seeing a gripping and a tightening of the police state, which brings me to another thing is like, this is the whole thing, right? Now that we see the wrenching getting a little bit tighter. Those that have traditionally been comfortable in their middle class lives or rich lives.
Now it's epidemic.
Now they're waking up and saying, "Oh, I'm a little bit threatened here."
Right.
And at the same time, we have these oppressed communities, the black community, all these different communities. Are like, look, we have our own history, and we'll honestly sit here and tell you our own history because we've seen how it's been different from outside of that illusion. And now we're dealing with a globalist state, and we're maybe on the cusp of a real, reckoning of truth in the world, or a great battle, or
I feel like it's
or all the above. I feel like we can't expect any one thing to happen. I think we always have this idea that everything's going to culminate, everything's going to come to a head, and one particular event's going to happen. I think it's going to be a lot more just different things, changes that are just more vague and confusing and difficult to handle.
The police state through paperwork and
you figure the 1% would throw us a bone in some respect, because it usually ends in beheadings, right? They might want to pick up a history book and see what happens. Cut to the end, see, oops, hey, let's just throw them a bone.
Yeah, but we have new technologies now. Maybe they won't be able to get to us in our fenced communities. And
that's probably it.
Wait, we're going down a dark corner here, aren't we?
Text messaging though. But I think that's an important point.
The satiation and being too busy to pay attention to what's going on in the world because everything's entertainment.
I think something very important that we're trying to put together here is something, a meaningful bit of thought to put out into the blogosphere, just the ridiculous mass of stuff that's happening right now.
Well, actually, I think this is a ridiculous mass of thought, actually. I think there is some value in it, though. Maybe we may be adding to the noise on a whole, but there's definitely some nuggets. We're providing some
hopefully
nuggets.
At one point, one day, we'll get to a point where we can put the thought together and it'll be meaningful to a few people.
Yeah, and it is. And there's all different kinds of levels, right? And that's one thing that we shoot to do is to be like, hey, here's an honest exposure of who we are and what we want as far as news sources and what we think is cool as art and what we think is original as music. And, mainstream, whether it's mainstream news or mainstream culture and news and art, music and art, wants you to think that, oh, here's the great ruler that everything is set to. Yeah. And, oh, it's independent and it's alternative if you've gone under our ruler. But we're kind of at the same time saying kind of a big, honest, very sincere, and friend to friend, fuck you to the mainstream that wants to say that we're the ones that control the magnet that controls how everything should be viewed by the people. Right. And now, guess what? We have the internet, and we got 4 microphones and a lot of cool friends. And so that's our approach, is to try to say we don't have to be mainstream to find good information about what's going on in the world. Really great artists, photographers, musicians, sculptors, and to have really great discussions without an advertisement.
Account, you're taking over the world.
Right. And I think just dropping the ads and in the future, if we can get some funding and keep getting bigger, we know we'll have to face that someday, right? Yeah. But I think it's a very something. Chomsky is always a big inspiration to me, and one of his things is how you can have a political conversation on TV between 2 ads, and you can't go over 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Or, what's that all about? So you start getting into a conversation, and then as soon as you start getting to something, then it has to end, and then you show people a Colgate commercial, and people get that, McLuhan-esque, like, oh, my teeth aren't clean enough. Or, and it just wipes the slate of what serious conversation we could have gotten to. So that's another thing we're actually hoping to do in this, is be politically progressive in information and media. Yeah. So, and at the same time, share really great art with everybody, so...
Well, I think you guys are doing a great job so far.
Cool.
Well, you may have to vary your guest. I don't want to be wearing out your audience. So.
You're not cool for next week too?
Oh no, I have nothing else to do on a Friday night. I love to be here.
Cool. We need a correspondence section where you just have a little bubble up here on a green screen that's just like live from Greenpoint.
Exactly.
Not to add to the
exotic locales.
To the length of this particular segment, I do want to come back to one thing we were just talking about. We want to put forward this honest bit of information that we have gathered sources that have researched and gotten their facts together. But it can't just be a group of people, four people at a time doing this. Really, more people have to do this. It has to. I would like to inspire other people to do the same thing that we're doing right now.
And there could be these like little communities, dare I say, call them cells of media information.
Because it's great, if we're talking to people out there and they're hearing us and they're getting something from us, that's fantastic. But even if nobody's out there, we're here, we're talking.
That's
we're
what it's to me,
among ourselves.
Yeah, I'm learning and we're documenting it, we're making it concrete. And just like all the many jams we've had with our friend musicians and poets and different people in here, we're recording it all now, and it's all going to be archived. And so it's kind of like something to do with legacy. Like we're pinning it down now, and just for ourselves, we're going to make it concrete. And if we can share it with other people online, and if other people enjoy it, that's really awesome.
Making it a point to put it out there in the public sphere is important, though.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah, Chris, thank you so much, man, for joining us again for this one. This is really great. Chris Haddix, ladies and gentlemen. I also want to encourage everybody to go to www.mantlethought.org. I've since meeting these guys, I've read maybe 5 or 6 of the articles on there, and I've loved all of them. Really informative, cool.
Thanks, guys.
Source. Yeah, thank you, Chris. Have a good night.
Mantlethought.org. If you go to .com, you'll get there anyway, so don't worry if you
cool.
forget that last part.
You just took the long way.
Yeah, exactly. That was a good segment.
Reread it.
So yeah, I'm feeling really good about where Sulphurbath is heading with this show, right? This.
I'm feeling really bad about where the world is heading right now, though. Not to bring us down even farther, but I'm at a loss at this point. I don't really know how to comment on. Okay, things are really, really crappy. What else? I would like to, hear somebody else's thoughts on that, but we might just be going into a whole nother
Well, with every
discussion
piece of
there.
crap lies, a tiny little ant standing on top of it, getting all the nourishment it needs for.
Oh my God.
Right, it's yin yang, right?
ants eat crap?
We could focus on like all the whole list of
Maybe
shit that's
dung
going
beetle.
on in the world with the banks taking everything over, and dung beetle's a perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the ancient, the Egyptians
I
worshipped.
think that's
So, hey,
exactly
just
why.
You got to learn to love shit, basically.
Yeah, right.
That's
Yeah.
Hey, if you're in a world of shit, learn to love
That's
it.
like the script I'm working on, right? Shitstorm. Is this? Maybe we should talk about Shitstorm a little bit.
Co-wrote that with the Dalai Lama.
Tell the world about. Yeah, right. Well, if maybe
Are you
I can
ready to
approach
tell
him
the
for some
world? Do
funding.
you want to wait for another time? We could just leave this little teaser.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should. Are you hinting that maybe it should wait
It's
we should
your
do like
call, man. It's your script.
Well, I didn't know. It'd be funny to just share with people, right? I think it'd be cool to write
Go
a
for
script.
it.
And what would be great is to get to South Park guys, right? Like Matt and Trey to help us do this. But I think like a revolutionary film, right? That's maybe semi-animated, and I envision it as like the best cult film of all time. Just Shitstorm. The tagline for the film is the power to effect change exists within each of us.
Very, very literally.
And it starts off with the scene where maybe there's an apprentice, an assistant of a senator or something that's helping him get ready for his speech for this important pundit, you know, and trying to gain money and all the lobbying. And he gets sick one day and he goes to work, but he's badgered, and the senator boss is just abusing him as usual, or her. And he or she decides that they're just going to bludgeon this senator with shit. Like, they shit themselves, basically, and they
just
wipe it
full
on the
on
senator.
Monkey in the Zoo style.
And then everybody that sees that live realizes, like, oh my God, the ultimate weapon. It really is the ultimate weapon.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
Imagine you could shut all the post office down, and you can, all these crazy scenarios you pictured that the South Park guys would help me do.
Yeah.
Where, like, there's the crazy captain of the ship that's like, I get it now. We got to show the world what kind of shit this system has turned into.
Wow.
And he comes up on Miami Beach and just unloads the sewage of the tanks and the ship on the beach.
yeah.
And
Wow.
all these really sub scenes.
But does anyone notice?
Yeah, that's the end of the film. Nobody notices, and they're just all swigging around and shit. Like, oh, did you see what the Kardashians did?
Yeah.
They figured out how to use shit in their new hairstyle or whatever,
Yeah.
And that it could
Business
be
as
the
usual.
sub message in
Yeah.
there, but
Capitalism
Shitstorm, you
is
guys,
the- is the
they helped me
great-
make that.
It's the great sponge of society.
Yeah, just
sucks it all up. You know what the newest thing is? Shit, everybody.
Yeah.
We're just wearing
You can
shit, and
make
we're,
it-
I
we're
think
swimming
we're-
in shit, and we're walking in
We're
shit.
due for our culture to have a really
Shitty
successful
revolution.
product,
Shit
a
based,
film or
yeah.
something that really points out like the fecal matter. Like we
Yes.
haven't had that in a while. Somebody's
Yeah.
going to come along.
Tune in
And they're going to say, this is the most amazing shit
Yes.
film of all time that's based on shit.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to think, like, oh, have we seen that before? We haven't really seen that happen.
God, what's on TV? Just some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, if it is politically accurate and it really just says, it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, what is it, The Network? I'm mad as hell. I'm not
Yeah.
going to take it anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Is that Sidney May?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sidney May. But something like that I'm picturing, but with the South Park guys and really gross and a really crazy cult film,
Yeah.
I think would be really
Yeah.
cool.
And if anyone out there wants to animate that portion of the show, you're free to do
Yes.
that.
Please do animate the whole thing and just email us
Oh,
a
my
GIF
God.
of it
and
or whatever.
now he's got something to pitch. He's
Yeah.
got
Yeah,
that little
yeah.
animation,
Right.
a lot of brown.
Well, I kind of honestly, it'd be really great if just somebody picked up on it out there on some random podcast we did.
Yeah.
It became a
Yeah.
film,
Yeah.
and instead of being offended, like, oh,
Sure.
they stole my idea, I'd be like, oh, thank God somebody
Yeah.
else made that shit, so I didn't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
working on the prequel, Indian Lunch Special.
Just the behind the scenes would be good for me, man.
yeah.
Just paying-
No. Okay.
Yeah.
The rap that made the shit.
So, and that brings up another thing that we should mention everybody about
Yeah.
Sulphurbath, right? Is that we're all collaborators that kind of have this big dream of making films someday, and of getting funding, getting in the industry, and producing
making the
stuff
next
that we
new
can
thing.
distribute both
Making it
locally
fun.
and through the internet and stuff like this, but also, being able to share artwork around the world and also, collaborate is a big
Yeah.
thing for me.
Great
I-
experiences.
I was wondering for the show to evolve and expand and get better, is there somewhere that someone could contact the show? Can we put up throw up an email or something
with
where somebody
ideas?
can,
Oh, that's
that's for people who would like to
Comments.
be featured?
you
or-
think we would have thought of that by show episode number 5, right?
Well,
Like an
I'm just-
email that somebody could.
a little
Wait, you
ahead of my
can send
time.
messages through the internet?
Yeah,
I had
it
no
happens
idea.
through electrons.
Whoa!
Oh.
Yeah, they somehow move
Oh my God! Where do you put the stamp?
on your computer,
Yeah, there's the stamp drive.
on your
It's on the
desktop,
front. You press the.
in your stamp drive. Yeah, no, I guess
You swipe your
info at
credit
Sulphurbath is the answer to that question. So yeah, any viewers at home, if you want to send us any suggestions
Wait,
or
can you
comments,
say that again? Because I didn't hear it.
you should send any suggestions or comments to info@sulphurbath.com.
Info. INFO.
Yep,
At
at Sulphurbath.
.com.
Sulphurbath. Mike Wilson Productions was taken. Okay, it's a long story. And so, but info@sulphurbath.com,
long
and
story,
we'll totally get those emails and we'll discuss stuff. Also, if you guys are watching us on Ustream, then you can do the live chatting
Yeah.
and make some
And
comments.
perform magic.
This sucks. What are you guys doing? Even though I got nothing better to do.
I hate it.
Like, yeah, exactly. How much of it is just like hate chat and like all the weird comments on YouTube today? It's like
Man.
it'd be like a cute teddy bear with a puppy, and it's so like fag. I hate this shit. Like, what are you doing?
I just hate teddy bears.
Thank you.
And
I wish
what
there
do
was no more videos about teddy bears.
Yeah, I swear, there's somebody
Get
on
off
a
of
payroll. There's somebody on payroll for some company out there that they're like, okay, you ready? 45, sometimes 50 hours a week,
Yeah.
and just go out there and spread hate and piss people off.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You get a bonus if you piss off more than 12 people to the point where there's like,
Our ultimate
Breaking the
goal
law.
is that we
That's-
ruin
yeah.
YouTube.
yeah. So,
Not
and we got to
ours.
find that company and
Yeah.
write them some
I
very
could be
clever
getting-
letters.
I could
Yeah.
I could be paid for my vitriol. I mean, I've been spewing stuff out for years on the internet.
Well, I guess it's who you know. That's what they always say. So
Yeah.
It's not who you know; it's who you hate.
Yeah. But it's also your network.
that's
Yeah.
what it's become today.
Yeah.
How successful are you going to do? I don't know. It's all who you hate.
I'm still
Yeah.
building my network of hate right now.
Yeah.
so
I go
I'm
to
not
job
really sure about
interviews. They just offer me the job, and I'm like, "Fuck you," and they're like, "Perfect."
Perfect. Are you a player hater or do you hate players? Or have
Yeah.
you been a player that's in the game just
Shut
to
up,
hate?
asshole.
Are you going to get rich or die trying? Are you a player? You just crush a lot.
Yeah.
it.
And
A lot of poignant
gosh,
questions.
did I get the
there.
job? Wow, I don't
Wow.
know. I think we've spent that segment.
I loved it.
It was a good one, right?
Yeah, so we got some other things coming
We
up
do.
after
We
this,
are.
do we not?
We are.
This is not just gonna
graced
trail
to be in the
off.
presence of Joel Gold here with us tonight, and he's about to come out and talk with us a little bit. So we're going to invite Joel out, and we're going to spend a couple minutes just talking to Joel and asking him some questions and hanging out. And Joel's going to join us inside the Sulphurbath, and then I believe he's also going to share with us some of his poetry.
That'd be great.
This is really great improvised poetry where he's just kind of stream of thought, stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
I've seen him a few times. It's been great. Hey, Joel, how you doing?
Yes.
Welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Set headphones for you. Get comfortable.
Oh yeah.
Rigorous. Okay.
Welcome, Joel. How are you?
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm touched by the iridescent sense of light. I cannot put it in perspective tonight. I'm lowering myself to some sort of corpulent sense of identity. I'm broken, but in the magnet of its attraction, I'm finding my identity. What shall I do in this room of doubt? What shout will deafen my senses? How good can I be for those who follow? Not against my heart, but pull apart where sutures are the reality. Spin eagerly, darlings. Hold on. Here comes the day. I improvise.
Well, that's great.
That's great.
Yeah. What I always, oh man, Joel, what I always love so much about when you do that is I hear you talking, to me anyway, I hear what you're saying, and it's the most profound way of saying certain things. Like saying something right now, you said this room of doubt, and here you are, you've never been here before, right? And we've invited you and been so gracious that you're joining us. But when you're talking these things, I get a lot of poetry that comes across to me from all over, and some of it is great, and the symbolism of it and the words that are used, it sounds great, but it lacks the substance. I'm still saying, like, what are you saying?
Ooh.
And you're quite improvised, but at the same time, I still feel
Child
like
of
you
dawn. For great the lower third, it looks for your eyes. Much for the surprise to be, your heart opens wide, and there's still too much mystery. What can he say on this mountain that seems to fold into itself help? He wanders wise in this cavern of no eyes open too much for the sun to find light. It is shadow instructed and waits for you tonight. How sweet, darlings, of the new dream. How nice to just touch the bullet before it finds the gun of blanks, before it gets your dream. Penetrate, don't self-hate.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. And I feel like we've hung out a few times, and you, as we've talked, sometimes you kind of just go into this mode, and I really find it challenging to me to understand kind of, anything improvised. I often wonder like how immediate is it, and if it's with music, you can kind of see, you can watch the instruments, and you can see what they're listening to, and so sometimes they're playing off of other people listening. With poetry, it just seems to me like how connected is this guy to the collective of unconscious? And yeah, maybe that's kind of putting it in kind of naive terms, but it seems to me like you do have this really great gift of being very profound in this way that still clings to something that makes sense. It's not abstract to me.
It's very accessible.
But it's physically abstract.
It feels like I'm hearing it the whole time.
Oh, I'm on sale tonight. No doubt. Well, here's the deal. When you're young and the infancy of it has no appeal other than to the dreams you're about to have. How good can you be if goodness means nothing to you when you're just a child of light? How good is that appetite to be satisfied when there's no rule to be followed and punishment doesn't enter your world? Your egg is about to hatch. How nice can we be, darlings, before we take apart the things we think we are, before we shuttle the star of someone else's life so that we can stand upon their mountain of doubt and laugh at them until they fall away, until yesterdays are no more than what we thought we'd be. How good is our life if all we do is pull apart, get out the scalpel, and dream of usury? Stuff.
Wow, amazing. Wow, that's really great. So deep, the dream of usury.
Yeah.
And how nice can we be before we pull apart what we think we are?
Yeah.
I pull certain parts of what you're saying. Did you come here with this, litany? Did you have a list of stuff that you
No,
or you're right now literally, this is improvised?
No, all of it. I just sat there with Kat. Kat it was wonderful to see her here.
Yeah, hi Kat.
My
Shout out to Kat.
anchor disappeared and I found my wing. I turned to her and said, Kat, I have no idea what I'm going to do tonight.
Cool.
And before, as I stood and you introduced me, I said, the pin has been pulled.
Right.
So in the sense of like a grenade, like,
Yeah.
are you still holding the handle though before?
I think the spoon flips off. Right?
It's a no hands hand grenade.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You're invited to pull the pin if you have the courage to do so.
Mm.
Well, before the thing even had a word, before I could speak and find some balance in this hierarchy of just reality, I'm looking for a certain kind of modality, something to give my presence an act of harmony. And yet I don't want to be blamed for the mistakes I make. I cannot see them as an ache that will turn into something positive. We all run from failure, but never fast enough. And the heart of it all finds the stuff to be entertaining while we maim ourselves and cheat the night before the dream finds the light of tomorrow and leaves us waiting for the music. Excuse me, I say, as someone taps me on my shoulder. Is it my dance? Babies, the trance is who we are. Stuff.
Yeah.
Really great. Wow, Joe, that's amazing. I remember sitting in a bar with you one night and asking. I think we got into kind of a weird, almost a call and response, where I would ask you random. Can I? Would you mind if I ask you random questions?
No, please.
No?
Please.
What? Okay. So no, please, as in no, yes, please.
No,
please,
he
as
would
in-
not mind.
Yeah, no,
which
he
is
would-
the
yeah,
question you asked.
Can I do it or not, guys? Joel, tell me
Do
what
whatever
do you
you
think
want,
of
Mike.
gravity?
Ouch! It
Big fan.
pulls at me. It has a direct sense of futility, and yet I cannot move without it. I shove myself inside a sheet of so much cotton, I breathe without purpose. I cough away the day where there is nothing more than blood in this sun that warms me too much. And yet, I am thankful to be grounded, to be held, to be seen underneath this microscopic dream that I give my name to. And at the same time, I want to be more free than that. And yet I cannot fly unless there's something to fly from. I cannot lie unless truth pulls me into that cave of those pictures recently made and watch them cry before I say my name. I need to be pulled towards some center. Without it, I'm just a game, an invitation. A lost dance that no one sees, a please of, as you spoke before, the toga need. And in it there is a ghost with God's speed that leaves me alone. And before I cry, I feel the tug of it, the clock of it. Gravity kisses my eye.
Oh, mother. Yeah,
Ditto.
wow, that's great, man. We're just
Ditto.
astounded.
I feel the same
You're
way
so,
about gravity.
Any more
yeah.
questions?
Do you? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it sums up gravity.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I think that was actually the same question I asked you in a bar
Yeah.
when you first blew my mind, and it was almost a playful like, oh, throw something out, and yeah. So can I ask you literally about your history about being a poet? So do you even fancy yourself a poet, or is this something that you recognize as a career in poetry, or do you have a long history of this?
Well, I would love to make money from improvising.
Mhm.
They would say to me, "What do you do?" And I would say, "I make stuff up." And the cup is filled. The clang of that bell pays my rent. Imagine what it would be like to just sit and look for a rhyme, and when it finds its wings in time, it is I. An advantage that gives me a sense of the day going on. I look for it, and there's no spawn of it all to be. The eggs of reality don't seem to challenge me. All I want to do is push against some light that doesn't have a name, some fright that doesn't have a handcuff of delight, and push me into the center of reality, where all is paid. All is just a dance smooth as silk against the eye. And I need no excuse, no alibi. I just push by. Eek.
Wow.
I snuck in there somehow. There was a lousy sense of a beetle on the shoulder finding its light. I turned to it. It hurt my neck. I have a bit of arthritis in there. I suspected that I'm being punished for something I didn't do, except I aged, I hope gracefully. But these days, there's too much ache and pain on the clock. Too many candles do I blow each day to say who I am. I don't want to stop it all. I'm frightened of that eternal darkness. I don't want to not know what is going on for those who still support me in this lovely act of civility. I want to be known as a stone that Sisyphus turned from. I had to push it on my own. I want something better than I am. I want to be free. Not in the sense one says in an act of poetry, or from some political sense that holds back its story. I want to feel the life again, as I did when I was young. Oscar Wilde said youth is wasted on the young. How sweet it is to me, I see that now. When all you have is an empty frame and Medicare. Ooh, babies, that's too bare, too much for the scar tissue to find its home. And in that sense of despair, I sit on the edge of my bed and stare into that magic box and hope I can find, with my lovely sense of time, a better tomorrow. Sorrow, are you with me? tonight. Words. Whoops.
Whoops and words. It's just so casual how you end each thing saying stuff and words and whoops, and
Yeah.
I'm on the verge of tears over here.
Stuff
No,
and words
no.
and whoops.
And stuff and words.
There's a t-shirt.
Yeah, stuff and words and whoops. Yeah, we would. If you give me something to put on a t-shirt, Joe, I'd gladly get somebody to make a t-shirt for you, man.
No, I can't go that way. I
Yeah.
don't want to be reminded of it.
Yeah.
The actuarian sense of evidence frightens me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that I can improvise
Uh-huh.
because I don't want to own anything. I don't want to be responsible for anything. I want to be in the room and then I want to leave.
Yeah.
And I want what happens in the room to be appreciated. That the
Right.
gloom of it found a windshield, not of despair. It pushed against the echoes, and the gossip of the air made me feel important. Why else would they turn to each other? When I was a child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey,
Hmm.
I was about 10, 11 years old, and I was in the playground. And all the Christian kids ran up to me. I'm Jewish. And they held me down. They were searching for my horns. This was Magellan pornography. And I had this one clear understanding that I've never had again, that this brutality they were pushing on my soul must mean that there's something special about me. Why else would they then be so bestial? Well, here we are, stars of night. Pushing to the horns of the light, I toot once in a while on that cymbal. I bring the sweet music before my eyes can close. I am open wide, hoping that the push of it all is a dance, a trance that features the heart and soul of the goodness we share. How hard it is for the Constitution to not speak of the simple things, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the excuses which are too plentiful, and the moment of truth that finds the core we can share without fear. The jury laughs out loud. The shroud falls away, and we wait as the page turns for this brand new day. Words.
Absolutely.
Really great. Great words.
New Jersey, huh?
New Jersey, homeland of the violence, the violent.
Oh, the violence.
Yes. So, thank you for inviting me here tonight. I've been
Oh.
in this funk lately.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment in the city. And I turn this little living room I have into like a showcase where when I'm feeling particularly down and I need the clown of my life to find its majesty,
Right.
Cool.
I step
Yeah.
out in the middle of the room and I improvise.
Yeah, great.
No one's there, just me and that terrible blade I call self-criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been needing an outlet. I've been needing to see faces look at me, not with disgrace. Sometimes they fondle the baby they will never have life to, and they crush it in that manger of potential and then blame me for it. All right, I say. Otherwise, I'm just here alone.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Ouch.
Well, Joel, not only will I hope that you'll come back for some other episode we have in the future, but, we end each episode here with an improvisation as well. Usually it's musical,
Yeah.
but we have several mics sitting here. And if you'd like, I don't know if this is the Joel that wants to get in and get out again, so you're free for that too, of course. But
No, I would like to do one more thing.
please do. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
This little child I've seen on the streets of mayhem and defeat walks with a kind of proud sense of her life. Against the green bench, which went to the lowest bidders so the government could give us a place to rest, she rubs her hand against one plank of it and then touches her heart. She sings to my eyes. She knows I'm looking at her. She gets this sense of importance, but it's sweet and it's innocent and it finds flight. And then she looks at me, and I find the music. I turn away to give her just an opportunity to play without objectivity. And that's when I know at one time in my life I was she. Well, I drink my coffee, my croissant, my sense of cultural denial in something that is a pedophile of doubt, grabbing with its calories, pulling me down. One more sip, and I watch her walk away. And the music begins to play again, and the clock begins to tick and to talk, and I'm no longer frightened of the world.
Really, Joel Gold. Really, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you
I'm
so
so
much for
pleased.
coming.
Yeah, we're totally honored to have you tonight
Well,
with
I
us.
loved it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so cool. And like I said, we hope to have you back. Some other episodes in the future would be great.
Oh, I'd love to come back.
And tonight, we're gonna change things up right now. We're gonna slowly get into form, and Fumio is gonna lead us for a live improvised musical piece.
Yeah.
And like I said, Joel, if you want to hang out, feel free to join us for that.
Plenty of microphones sitting around.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
just find a space that you find comfortable.
We're going to
and,
take 5 minutes to say goodbye in an improvised way, basically. So
all right.
I think tonight's show was amazing. How about you guys? You guys
Yeah,
feeling
it's
good,
good.
right?
This
Amazing.
was great. And I think, we were talking about the, what are we going to call this ending part? And we really, don't say goodbye. I guess maybe you do at the end of the show.
Well, we
but
sang the goodbye song once, even.
The whole, yeah. We did. But, maybe this is our way of saying goodbye. So maybe we don't have to name it, but,
Okay, so it's from now on, it'll be the unnameable.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Wow. It's like an H.P. Lovecraft monster.
the unnameable.
Right, that's...
Don't say it.
You're right.
Yeah. I didn't know about that either.
Sweaty headphones. Okay, thank you guys so much.
I don't
So
want you
we're
to
going
look
to
at it.
say goodnight. We're going to say also goodbye with a piece of improvised music led by Fumio Toshiro. I would also like to thank Chris Haddix for joining us tonight. The conversation was awesome, man. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Episode 5 of the Sulphurbath, Inside the Sulphurbath. And also want to thank Joel Gold very much for his poetry and for sitting and talking to us.
Wonderful.
Really, thank you guys so much. It was really cool. Have a great night.
The company showed up a little too early tonight. They were all dressed up in their black blues, holding to a full moon just a little too tight. No one could say a word, that would be responsibility. The lovely chokehold was finding its flotation collar, and the meek were climbing off their knees. What could be said is the formation was a circle, not of doubt, but something to hold against our hearts as we stood up and grasped for tomorrow's light. Oh, babies, someone said. Before the mind could shut off and the eyes could close, there was sweet and the metallic observance of some life being born anew, some egg being hatched in the dew of a new day. No one played it, no one punished it. Everyone saw it as an eventual sense of what once was now becoming something new in this day. And all the babies stayed for another hour or two. All the new was not described yet. The objectivity was not a judgment. The lovely box of jurists was still empty. And those who had something to say were rehearsing in the back rooms of yesterday. Oh, babies, ain't life grand? Oh, babies, ain't life grand? As the curtain was rising, there was no one of surprising reality to contradict what they saw in the light of some sort of efficacy. It was good for them to hold on to a truth. It was better if what they did, they would retain in tomorrow's mystery. Waking up wise on the edge of surprise, they held their hands and covered their eyes and waited for the music to begin.
That sounds really cool. I want to thank everybody tonight for joining us. Chris Haddix, it was awesome talking to you. Thank you again. Also want to thank Joel Gold. Joel, you're an amazing poet. Thank you so much for gracing us tonight. Also want to thank Fumio Toshiro for leading us into that jam. Fumio playing upright bass right now. Good friend and collaborator. Thanks, Fumio. Also, Dan Marco was behind the scenes helping us out tonight. He's playing drums right now. Thank you, Dan, very much for joining us. It was awesome. Super cool. Blaine Kneece, my co-host, and playing acoustic guitar now. Thank you so much, Blaine, for jamming. I want to thank Greg Becker. He's doing that sweet trumpet line right now and also saying goodbye to everybody. And I'm Mike Wilson. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Just want to thank Miho Morita for doing the camera work, as always. It's awesome. And I'm just gonna let these guys keep going for a minute while say goodbye. Thank you, guys.
I began to experience vivid hallucinations of the past and the present, even the future, and even the future. Man thinks of evil that will come and guards against it. As I lay in darkness, This body is a combination of aggregates, elements, and sense media, which are comparable to murderers, poisonous snakes, and an empty town, respectively. Which are comparable to murderers, poisonous snakes, and an empty town, respectively. Yeah.
Sing